Hey, what's up? It's another edition of the UP Power Podcast with Keegan Cooper and Kevin McNulty, a special Friday edition. We are ready to go for Friday Night Fever this evening. It's going to be a great night out there, a chill in the air. We are matching, I think, on this podcast for the first time ever. We are on the same page, ready for our third Fever of the year this evening. Now, we didn't do the podcast earlier in the week. We were previewing our game of the week tonight, Westwood and Calumet, but let's go back to last night. College football week 2 for Northern and Tech. Michigan Tech played one of the most exciting football games I think I can remember in my life. Doesn't matter any level, NFL, college. You're used to these games in college football. Every once in a while when you go to overtime, you get starting on your 25-yard line, next overtime. This one goes 4. After the Huskies go into overtime at Bemidji State in week 1, they dropped that one 19-13. This is one that they probably felt they had to have against a team that lost by 30 in week 1. That's South Dakota Mines. And, man, it took a while. It wasn't easy to get there, but they got a win 52-50. That was wild.
Yeah, they grind out the win. And when you look at that game, the first 3 quarters of football for Michigan Tech.
Bad news
Bears. You thought it was over. You really thought that they were not going to do it. But fourth quarter starts, and the offense kind of gets a little bit of flow going. And sooner or later, they tie it back up. And now it's like, all right, we've got, a game on our hands. And into overtime, too. I mean, those are the pressure situations that you got to have down the stretch. When you think about the postseason, if you ever get into one of those, to be able to do it now, can we do it now at the end of the season? And I think that, I'm glad, they get the win, but that experience that they got for that game and week 1 going into overtime, I think will only help them throughout the season.
And, well, in these types of games, which I imagine they're going to play a lot of tight games when they get into GLIAC, you need a quarterback you can trust. And Alex Freeze, the vet out there, his second year as a starter, he was composed despite being down 3 touchdowns for a lot of the second half. All the way until the end, actually the beginning of the fourth quarter was when they closed it to 35-21. Alex Freeze sets the single-game passing record for Michigan Tech, the longest game in Michigan Tech history. It kicked off at 6 o'clock. I don't think it was over till after 10, right around 10, so a 4-hour game in Houghton, and 471 yards for Alex Freeze, 5 touchdowns. You need a quarterback, and in addition to that, a wide receiver you can count on. Ethan Champney was that guy, his high school teammate. It seemed like he was catching every pass from Freeze for a lot of this game, but it was all touchdowns, no field goals in this game. At the end of regulation, it was 35 all, so obviously 5 touchdowns aside. Go all the way to the second overtime, and Dan Metlack gets, obviously, the Huskies' second touchdown of the overtime periods, goes for 2 to make it 50 all. Okay, we're going to a third overtime, 2-point conversion rule. So strange. Both of those teams really couldn't miss in the first 2 overtimes. Then they go to the 2-point conversions. They both can't convert. So we're going to the fourth overtime. Freeze to Champney, boom, another touchdown. Obviously, you only get the 2 points, so it's 52-50. And finally, they get the stop. Hunter Pekel blocked the pass. Just electric late night in Houghton. Fans were rowdy. It was loud on that podcast. And obviously, we had a camera there.
Yeah.
I sent him home when it was 35-14 at the end of the third quarter. I'm like, okay, not Tech's night. Didn't use anything from Jerry. Sorry, Jerry. He was out on the sidelines, said, okay, this one's probably it. Head on back. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching from home, and they go down 21-0, and you think, okay, this South Dakota Mines team came in and they meant business. And, I mean, they still meant business. 52-50, 102 points in a Division II football game is nothing to be weary of. I think that's
crazy.
Great for Michigan Tech to end up on the winning side of that, and for South Dakota Mines to play them that close after, losing in week 1. To bounce back like that for them is great. Michigan Tech gets it done. I think it's a good feeling to get that win, especially get that overtime win after Michigan Tech's week 1 game where they go to overtime and they don't come out on top. And, Alex Freeze, I mean, come on. 471 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Pretty insane. And, thinking about it, Ethan Champney came close to setting the receiving record. 10 receptions, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then a couple of 2-point conversions in overtime, too. The highlight for him was a 59-yard catch for a touchdown at the beginning of the fourth quarter, like I mentioned. So I didn't think their Week 1 game could be topped in terms of drama, but this one absolutely blew it out of the water. And how huge for Michigan Tech to be 1-1 instead of 0-2.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a big difference when obviously it was their goal to, win all their non-conference games like they did last year? Not a good start. At Bemidji, you lose a tough one by 6. Defensive battle. This one quite the opposite in 4 overtimes, and now you got 2 more non-conference games against Hillsdale and Wisconsin Oshkosh before they begin GLIAC play. But it's huge. The Huskies are 1-1, and like I said, in the most dramatic fashion.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, at least for me, looking at Michigan Tech through these first 2 weeks now, is they need to start offensively early. They need to score early. When you look at, last night's game, they didn't. Their offense kind of stuttered through. Then you put some points on the board. And now in the fourth quarter, we score.
Yeah.
Start early. Don't put yourself in those pressure situations where you're down 3 touchdowns. And now you've got to, speed it up. Now, credit to them because they did exactly what they needed to do, and they come out with a win. But start that offense early so you're not, don't play from behind.
Yeah, and you mentioned being excited to talk to Dan Metlick on Tuesday. I agree, but I think, when he looks at the tape, he's not going to be very happy with a lot of this game, just the way it went. Not very typical of their defense to give up 35 points in regulation, and then, of course, the 2 touchdowns in the first couple of overtimes as well. So the Huskies 1-1 after a thriller in Houghton Thursday night. Now NMU in action Thursday night as well on the road at Kentucky Wesleyan, their first road trip of the season. And they had a lead in the first half, a couple of them. They didn't look bad by any stretch of the mind.
Yeah.
And I think 4 quarters is definitely the challenge for them because once Kentucky Wesleyan kind of got going there in the second quarter, they didn't really stop, and the offense stalled out for the Wildcats. So they drop it 33-13. But I think a decent bit of positives for the Wildcats after week 2.
No, yeah, and I mean we look at their week 1 matchup where in the first half, they're only down 13-0. So now it's how can we stretch and be great like that for 4 quarters? Is it conditioning? Is it more endurance? Is it, we're going to have to pull guys off the bench and they're going to also have to take some snaps and play defense or play offense? How do we stretch it to 4 quarters? I think if you look at Northern Michigan in their first 2 weeks, they've played 2 great halves of football, right? If you look at the first half, great half in both games, I would say. Now, they didn't score in week 1 in the first half, but they were only down 13-0. Second week, first half, they're holding the lead for a little bit. But I think, like you said, the offense kind of stalled in the second half, and then they started to get tired. And Kentucky Wesleyan settled in and was able to do things offensively.
Let me take my sip. Aiden Horde only threw the ball 17 times. He was 7 for 17, 99 yards, another interception. Got to limit the turnovers if the Wildcats want to, get a win on the board. Interception each of the first 2 games for Horde isn't going to help. For reference, though, Alex Freeze threw the ball 51 times. Let me confirm that last night. It was pretty insane, the discrepancy there between the 2 quarterbacks we cover. Aiden Horde, 7 for 17, 99 yards. I think you got to give him, a little bit more of a chance and have him throw the ball more than that.
Yeah, and I mean, with that, the caveat to that is he's thrown 2 interceptions in the first 2 weeks, 1 in each game. So maybe you don't want to. I know Northern is,
You got to instill a little bit of confidence in the quarterback, too, that you are going to throw the ball because he had a 45-yard dot to Michael Love early in the first half that resulted in a touchdown, their only touchdown of the game on that drive. So you saw him air it out, a couple times. It worked on that 45-yard catch to Love. But yeah, I don't know. Throwing the ball only 17 times, especially when you're trailing, you would have think he would have kind of racked up those attempts in the second half. That wasn't the case. Yeah, 51 attempts for Alex Freeze on Thursday. I was correct.
Yeah. And I know the Wildcats, established the run game. That's been kind of a message that I've heard, talking to coaches and players. But at some point, it's like, especially when you're playing from behind, I think you do have to throw the football more. I think you have to.
Yeah, no, they only rush for 140 yards for a gain. In college, they subtract, so the net was 123. That's not crazy rushing numbers.
No.
Their offense is still not where it needs to be. I think that was the talk after week one when they really only scored that garbage time touchdown. You're like, okay, where's the offense going to come from? Because you're going to need that at some point. While the defense kind of hung in there and kind of flipped week two. You saw some glimpses from the offense, but over the course of 4 quarters, like I mentioned, it kind of deteriorated for the defense. The Kentucky Wesleyan quarterback, Joey Cambron, completed 20 passes for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's exceptional, and that's all on the Wildcats defense. That they gave that up and didn't give their offense much of a chance in the second half when the Panthers were putting up points on them most times down the field.
Yeah, and if you are going to be a run-first offense, which we see those college teams that are, they have running backs or they're going to run the ball.
There's one in Ann Arbor who won a national championship doing that last year.
Yeah, if you're going to be that though, your net value of rushing yards at the end of the game needs to be over 200. And I don't think that that's an exaggeration when you look at, the national champions from last year and what Blake Corum did and what Michigan football
They don't have a
does.
Blake Corum or a Donovan Edwards, but yeah, if that's their MO, trying to establish a run, you could argue they did a little bit of that on Thursday night, but definitely not enough to warrant that being their entire offense. So 0-2 start for the Wildcats, not a big shock, but 2 more non-conference games for them. On the road at UW-La Crosse, that's going to be a tough one. And then they're home for Alma, D3 powerhouse.
Yeah, homecoming, right?
So different level. That is homecoming on September 21st.
Yeah, so two tough games, but also I think UW-La Crosse is going to be a tough one. But Alma is a team that they can beat, right? Especially you're playing at home, it's homecoming. That game's going to be heightened because of that. You
have a much better crowd than you did for Duluth.
Yeah, maybe you let Horde throw the ball a little bit more. 30 passes. Next 2 games.
Yeah, maybe if it's warranted.
Yeah, true. If you're running the ball and you're getting.
That's what I'm saying. When you're chasing in the second half, your quarterback only throws the ball 17 times for the whole game. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, like I said, they have some things to figure out on offense. And then, after that Alma game, they're home for Saginaw. Go to Grand Valley. That's probably going to be a loss.
Yeah.
And then you have that Roosevelt game, which we circled.
Yeah, which you have to win that.
The week before Tech, the Miners' Cup. You have to win that.
Yeah.
So it would obviously be nice if the Wildcats steal one of these non-conference games against La Crosse next week or Alma on the 21st.
And I think, kind of looking at down the road in their season, winning that Roosevelt game will probably give them a boost going into the Miners' Cup, knowing who they're playing.
They have to win that.
Because if they're not, it could be Grand Valley, Roosevelt, Michigan Tech.
Bad news.
Bad news, yeah.
You're looking at 700 days without a win. So you don't want that.
No.
You do not want that. Let's transition to high school football. Obviously, we haven't been back on the podcast since the first week. Loaded up Thursday of high school football. We had a couple games on Friday. Let's start where we started Thursday night on our first Friday Night Fever of the year. Gladstone and Marquette. Gladstone, great team last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were threatening right down to the very end, trying to fight off a sneeze.
That's all right. I'll take a drink while you fight off the sneeze.
I think I did it. Yes.
You did it.
That's always a huge victory when you fight off a sneeze.
It is. It is.
Great feeling. It'll come probably in another half hour. I'll have to do that again. Gladstone, Marquette. Gladstone very good last year. They lost a lot.
Yeah.
Nate Young, their quarterback, was really, really good all of last year. In the Westpac, they were a problem. They looked a lot different, while Marquette looked a whole lot better than they were last year. They were a playoff team last year, 5-3 in the regular season. Ford Richardson, being a year older, now a junior, as their quarterback, he was airing it out. He's got weapons as wide receivers. You're talking Jacob McPhee, Kyler Sager, two great athletes right there. And then he's got a line that can really protect him. And look at what Richardson did when he wasn't throwing the ball, 60-plus yard touchdown for the kid. I mean, really great game, 55-0 Marquette wins. We will be keeping a close eye on Marquette all year. Two UP teams left on their schedule, Escanaba and Kingsford. You got to circle that Kingsford game, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. And I mean, what you saw Ford Richardson do coming in last year as a starter late, taking over the quarterback role.
Yeah.
The growth.
Don't see that very often in high school football, but Eric Mason made the call to try it out. And I think having those games under his belt as a sophomore, and I talked to Ford about this, he didn't really play quarterback until he was like 8th grade, his freshman year down in North Carolina. He started to play more quarterback, came in as kind of a backup, but was playing other positions on offense last year. By the time he got those reps in real games as the quarterback, he could really tell, okay, he's got something here. And, I mean, from then to now, talking week 1, 2024, he looks like perhaps the best quarterback in the UP. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, he is quick, agile. You saw in his decision-making in that week 1 game, he was making the right decisions. Now, not every pass and every run is going to go his way, but, I mean, 55-0, I think, does enough to, answer that question for everybody, is Ford Richardson is doing the right things at quarterback for Marquette.
This week, the Sentinels are at Alpena. Gladstone goes to Negaunee. That will be a tough one. You'll be out there tonight. We'll have a quick preview of that one later on, but let's talk about the Miners taking on a Wisconsin team last Thursday. Kewanee, Wisconsin, the first team from the state to our south to ever play at Miners Field. Over a 100-year history there. And, well, Negaunee played a complete game. I think their line is a step up from where it was last year. You have some really big dudes that can protect their running backs. Weston Yesney, a senior, kind of filling the shoes of Kyle Card a little bit. That looked really good. Ty Jacobson, their quarterback, looked really comfortable. Of course, Negaunee's not going to throw the ball a ton if they don't have to. That was the case in week 1. 28-7, Miners win it. They look like they could really have something this year in Negaunee.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at Negaunee and you look at the history, they've been all the way. They've been there. They've been in those moments. Paul Jacobson has that experience as a coach and leading them. So it's, sticking to what works for them. And right now it's, throw the ball a little and establishing the run. I say establish the run. They're going to run the ball on you every time.
They don't need to establish it. I think they've been doing that for 25 years under Paul Jacobson.
It's established. They're going to run the ball, and you got to figure out a way to stop it. Ty Jacobson does have the ability to throw the football, but they don't have to, right? And if you don't have to, then there you go. Negaunee, and I think we talked about it, week 1 they looked like they were in mid-season, late-season form. They had all the kinks out, maybe a few penalties here or there or stuff like that. But the Negaunee Miners are definitely a team to watch this season.
I agree. In addition to Weston Yesney, that's going to screw me up all season long, just calling him Wesney, which I think is kind of cool.
It's
a little portmanteau of his first name and his last name. So Wesney looked good running the ball, and then Hank Tinknell, really good in week 1. Both sides of the ball had an interception. And got to shout out the guys that don't make the highlight reel too often because they're not skill position players, but Dave Carlson was all over the field making tackles. He is a big body, should scare a lot of teams that will take on Negaunee this year. And this week it's going to be Gladstone trying to go in there and sneak out with a win. We'll see how that goes. It will be a tough test because Negaunee looked really good in week 1 against Kewanee. Let's move on. Another game from last week. Where do you want to go?
Let's go to the team that made it the farthest last year, Kevin. Let's head south to the Menominee Maroons, who may not have Trevor Turcoff and Landon Bardowski.
But they have Tanner Turcoff and Dawson Bardowski.
Dawson Bardowski.
Yes.
Calm, cool, and collected. I think when we had Friday Night Fever, I said, Tanner be nimble, Tanner be quick. It's Tanner Turcoff in for another 6, and he was. I mean, he threw the ball, he ran the ball. Menominee looked like, I would say, a mid-season 4 team. Now, I will say, a few penalties for the Maroons, and you can equate that to being week 1 and nerves and things like that. But, I mean, I don't think the Maroons are going to have any problem this year. And their week 1 game, a heightened game, the M&M game. That's one that everybody circles on their calendar.
I believe they've won 6 straight now.
Yeah.
Last couple of games because of the Blesh Stadium falling apart a little bit. They were played down in Marinette. Well, they moved it back to Menominee this year, new bleachers. Great crowd out there on Friday night, Labor Day weekend. And the Maroons showed up.
Yeah, 49-6, the final score.
Yeah.
Tanner, running the ball, throwing the ball, finding his teammates. He looked calm in that position, and I think a lot of it is, obviously he played a different position last year, but seeing what his brother did over the course of the season and how Trevor kind of carried himself game in and game out gave Tanner that, okay, I can step into this role and do that.
Without a doubt, Menominee has Hancock at home this Friday night, so we'll see if they can move to 2-0. Hancock got a 6-0 win over Lance in week 1, so that was a defensive game. They're going to have a tough time shutting out Menominee. I doubt that's going to happen, so we'll see if the Bulldogs can show up. Let's talk about Iron Mountain, because I think this gave us a little bit of a Michigan feeling against Fresno State week 1. It's like, okay, you won. Michigan ended up winning by 20. Iron Mountain wins by 10 over Houghton. Houghton looked a lot better, I think, than they did last year. But at the same time, Iron Mountain, you really, after last year, undefeated regular season, no one was really within 30 points of them. Week 1, that wasn't really the case, but Alex Jane is next up for the Mountaineers. He looked really good.
Yeah, and I think, I think we might have to write this one off as a week 1 game, and I think nerves and the pressure to do that because they were undefeated.
Adjusting to life without Kolovecki, who's playing at Tech, and Luke Wolf, too, who was their running back last year.
Yeah, you got to figure out what works as you're playing. I know you have training camp and you have your preseason and things like that, but you never really know until you're out there playing 4 quarters, and it's either a W or an L at the end of the night. So,
right.
I think this week for them, I think that we'll see them be more comfortable. I think we'll see more points on the board.
I agree.
Definitely. Settling into, okay, these are your roles. These are what everybody, this is your job. You have to go out and do it. And everybody has to go out and do their job. And if we do this, then at the end of the night, at the end of the 4 quarters, we're going to have 50 points on the board and not have anything to worry about.
They are at Bark River this evening, so we'll see if they pick up their second win of the year and start to get rolling a little bit in Iron Mountain. That one is at Bark River. So, we'll see if IM can improve to 2-0. Now, Kingsford, no UP Player of the Year, Eli Rouse, on their squad this year. I will say improved Escanaba team, too. They looked pretty stout on defense last Thursday night, but a 21-0 win for the Flivers. Gavin Grondin, now a senior, he was pretty exceptional catching passes from Nick Navarra.
Yeah, and we kind of look now how Kingsford has kind of molded and changed their game. Last year it was give it to Eli. He's going to run for, I think
this was a bit of a week 1 adjustment, too. Like, what do we have this year? But they figured it out, won by 3 touchdowns in the end. Defense, really good, even without Noah Johnson, shutting out the Eskimos.
Yeah, it's what do we have? And what we have is we have Nick Navarro, who can throw the ball, and we have Gavin Grondin, who can go anywhere on the field and catch it. And that may be how Kingsford has to roll this year, is finding their receivers. Now, they're still going to run the ball, right? They're still gonna run, some hard-nosed plays and try to get yards on the ground. But you can throw it and have Gavin Grondin go get it. Why not? We saw that 30-yarder that he, leaned back, caught 1 foot in the end zone. That's not an easy catch.
Darn impressive. Yep.
That's pure athleticism right there. So, again, I think it's this week one for everybody of we know what we have, and we've practiced and we had our preseason, but these week one games are okay. We want to win, but we also got to try things and see what we have. Maybe we run the ball. Okay, Kingsford knows, hey, Navarre can throw, Grondin can catch. Now we have that connection, so we can go to them. Week 2 here to me is, okay, we've tried out things. Now we know what we're going to do. We're going to put this in.
Who does Kingsford have tonight?
They have Houghton at Kingsford, so home. So a perfect example tonight. Kingsford is playing at home. That place will be packed. The Friday night flivvers and the fans will be out. They're going to put points up on the board tonight because I think that they've had that week 1 game. Okay, this is what we have. This is what has worked. This is what maybe didn't work, and we have to tweak it. Now we're going to go out in week 2 and,
We'll see. I think it's a big game for Houghton, too, to try and avoid falling to 0-2, starting your year with 2 really good teams from Dickinson County with Iron Mountain and Kingsford. Let's talk a little 8-player from last week. North Central, rough start, lost to Pickford, pretty convincing loss. I don't really know what we're getting with North Central because you think maybe, okay, redemption year. We fell last year in the playoffs to Lake Linden after dropping one to the Lakes during the regular season. Pickford's really good, but week 1, North Central didn't have it.
Yeah, and I think it's the ebbs and the flows of success in high school football, right? North Central was up here for a long time, back to back to back, 3-time, state champs.
Yeah.
But now it's every other team knows what it takes to get there.
Right.
And so North Central may be on the same, the same playing field as everybody else, like, Pickford, like Munising, like Norway, like these other teams that have, watched North Central have this success. Now, is North Central still going to have a successful season? You bet. They're going to win some games. They probably are going to be a playoff team, but it's, you start to play these other teams that have watched you be successful. North Central everybody's got North Central's number every night, every week when you play them.
Target on their back, for sure.
Because they've been so successful. So North Central knows, hey, we have to play almost perfect against everybody because if not, they're gonna beat us. They're gonna take it from us.
That's what happened. Like I mentioned, Pickford really good, but that was a pretty convincing win. Now, Lake Linden, team I mentioned that knocked North Central off last year, they didn't look great week 1 either, and they fall to Hurley, Wisconsin. So an 0-1 start for the Lakes. Of course, they're a much different team than they were last year. Without Danny Marcotte as their quarterback, he was exceptional in 2023. Gabe Popko getting some decent playing time with the Huskies at Tech. Let's pull up the box score and see what Popko did last night. Receiving, don't see him on there, but he had a couple receptions in week 1 at Bemidji. So, yeah, an 8-player, we're trying to figure out who the top dog will be. Maybe that looks like Norway right now.
Yeah.
48-point win over Stevenson. They really had it all rolling. The Bai brothers were really good on Friday night. That was a Friday night game. And, yeah, I think we need to keep an eye on the Knights as we move through the 8-player season because we were talking about them being right up there with the Pickfords, North Centrals, Lake Lindens, like last year. They were a really good team last year, but I think they might have a little leg up on everyone else. They certainly do over a couple of those teams because they're 1-0 heading into week 2.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at that Friday night game, the first play, their offense isn't even on the field. The kickoff, Owen Bai
They had 2 touchdowns before the offense took the field.
Yeah.
It was the kick return and then fumble recovery, run it back, and boom, it's 14-0. All right, now we go for the offense. I mean, that's a pretty nice cushion to have.
Yeah, I mean, when your special teams or your kickoff return team is catching the ball and running it back, kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of the offense and almost takes a little bit of pressure off of the defense because now you've got a 14-0 lead and now you're actually starting. So keep an eye on Norway. I want to also keep an eye on Munising this year. A team that has been up and down. The kind of the Kane Nebel era and those guys were when they were up, and then those guys graduated. They went a little down, but they're kind of back on the up, I think, this year, and using their speed and their agility. Munising, especially an 8-player, they're going to run the ball. They also have receivers that can get out behind the defense,
Right.
throw the ball up, Go up and catch it, come down with it. So I think the Mustangs might be might have a place in there among the top 8 player teams, and that's what's so interesting is over the last couple of years, every year 8 player has changed. Every year a new team emerges, right? For a long time it was North Central, then it was Lakeland and Hubble. Now Pickford's in the mix.
Pickford's been there a little bit too. Rudyard, talking about those Eastern UP teams. And now you have to throw Ishpeming into the equation. Mm-hmm. They're 1-0, beat Florence pretty handily. I like to reference last year when they were still an 11-man, they were 6-3. They were a playoff team. And the numbers warranted they go to 8 player, but they still have a lot of talent there. Caden Luma, a guy we talk about on the basketball court, is their quarterback, and good start for Ishpeming. They might crash the party in 8 player this year.
They might. It would be maybe a not welcome to 8 player football because people want to beat Ishpeming. A team that historically in 11 player has been successful, has been
right
all the way. They might be another team that's like, hey, we got your number. We know you're an 8 player football now. Welcome to 8 player football, but we want to beat you and understand that, hey, we're still the top dogs in this.
The 8-man game of the night on this Friday, Lake Linden at Munising. We'll have highlights of that one on Fever. Go Gibbik plays at Norway. Go Gibbik had a win in week 1, so both those teams are 1-0. We'll see how it shakes out this evening. Let's talk a little bit about our game of the week and why did we choose a 3-6 team from 2023 and a 1-8 team from 2023? I'm talking about Calumet and Westwood. Well, they both played really well in week 1. Otherwise, if this was a week 1 game of the week, we probably would have gone with Gladstone Negaunee. I can't trust the Braves to be in that game. We'll see how they show up this evening, but we went with Calumet and Westwood. Calumet, a 50-point win in week 1, 50-0. They get it done. And then thinking about Westwood, 24-point win over Bark River, who beat them by 20 last year. Ethan Marta's a year older. They have a new head coach, Tyler Thomas, who I think you and I really believe in, that he has brought new life to that program. Let's see what happens tonight. 2 1-0 teams going at it. It's a big game here early in the season.
Yeah, and when we think about, we both have talked. You talked with Westwood, I talked with Calumet. Calumet is a run team. They're gonna pound the ball on the ground. Westwood's defense is gonna have to stop that, find a way to stop it, right? Calumet defensively is gonna have to stop Ethan Marta, right? He is quick and agile, one of those quarterbacks that we like to watch.
He's a playmaker, yeah.
Playmaker. He can get out of the pocket. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. They're going to have to find a way to contain him. And talking with Calumet and their guys, they know that he's there, right? All these kids in the UP know each other, so they know the key to the game for Calumet is to stop Ethan Marta, right? And not allow him to do what he does, right? And the key for Westwood is they've got to stop the run. Force Calumet to beat you in the air. And if they beat you in the air, then okay, right? But Westwood has athletic guys, quick guys that can keep up with those receivers. So you can't let Calumet run the ball on you too much.
They're playing a slightly different brand of football than they did last year. I mentioned Marta being a year older, kind of like Ford Richardson. This was a guy who was starting as a sophomore, now a junior. He looks pretty good. We'll see how it shakes out tonight. The Calumet win was over West Iron, 50-0, like I mentioned. Just run. We'll win going away, and that's what happened in week 1 for the Copper Kings. So look forward to all that and more. Friday Night Fever, 11:20 Eastern Time on TV6. What else do we have to talk about on Fever tonight? It's the Packers opening up their season in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We don't have to get into the questions about playing a game in Brazil. The beat writers there not able to tweet, things like that. Players not able to use their phones outside the stadium. But we're going to have a football game on Peacock this evening. The NFL opener, of course, we had it last night, Ravens-Chiefs. We'll touch on that. But the Packers, new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. The Eagles have 2 new coordinators going into this year. New defensive coordinator is, one of the gurus, Vic Fangio. So they should look pretty good. What does he dial up against Jordan Love and the Packers offense that was so good the last 8 games into the playoffs? Last season, do they disrupt the $225 million man? He got paid, of course, at the beginning of training camp. I don't know what we're going to see from the Packers, but week 1 is definitely a tone setter when you have these big games, nationally televised, streamed.
Streamed, yeah.
But 2 really good teams. Yeah. It's a standalone game is what I'm saying on a Friday night here. I don't know what we're going to get. What Eagles team are we going to see? Is it going to be the Eagles team that lost 7 in a row at the end of last year, or is it going to be maybe the 2022 Eagles that went to the Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts was awesome. I don't really know. That's why this game interests me.
Yeah, I mean, it's gut check time, right? You're on the national stage, right? If you're a fan of football, you're probably going to be watching this game when it kicks off, right? So, Jordan Love, it's gut check time. You're going to have to come out. You're going to have to set your team up.
I agree, because he got paid.
You got paid
after half a good season.
Yeah, after half a good season, you got paid. So if you got to come out and you got to perform. And on the other side, Eagles too. Jalen Hurts, you got to come out, you got to perform. Right? You are the guys. Everybody's watching you. Right?
It's one game. You get 17 of them, but. Like I said, this is a tone setter against a really good team in the NFC. The Eagles on FanDuel open as 2.5 points favorites. I shouldn't say open as, because this game will be played in a couple of hours, but 2.5 point favorites. They are the home team. Not that it really matters, playing in Brazil. But yeah, Packers underdogs in this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be a pick'em game.
It could be a pick'em game. It's a coin toss. It's a flip. You never know how
coin
it's going to
toss,
land.
yes.
2 things I know, though. Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love, eyes are on you tonight, and you both got to perform, right? I mean,
it's the National Football League, and especially we can get into it because that's, I think, our preview for the Packers-Eagles game. Last night, the show was Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Obviously, both 2-time MVP award winners, 2 of the very best. Obviously, Mahomes considered the best, perhaps on track to be the best ever. And then Lamar, who has had this incredible career so far, can run pretty much unlike anyone else ever has, besides Michael Vick, maybe. He does that last night. He's down 20 pounds. He looks really good coming off an MVP season. And then Mahomes is the boogeyman.
He is.
27-20. The Chiefs hang on at home. It was. I mean, you couldn't start the NFL season with any more drama, just like we had drama in Houghton last night. Well, look to the NFL. You get more drama. The Ravens drive down, 2-minute drill for Lamar. Isaiah Likely was exceptional. And then you get down, not a lot of time left. They're at the 10-yard line. Lamar, back corner of the end zone, trying to hit Likely, overthrows him. Likely gets hurt, separates his shoulder maybe. On that play, he's down on the turf. Next play. And maybe this is the Ravens' luck, or this is just what happens when teams play the Chiefs, but you have Zay Flowers wide open in the end zone. Lamar said he wasn't even going for Zay Flowers. He just looked a little discombobulated, and if Flowers was 6'5",
that would have perfect pass.
I think, well, he threw it behind him, but I think he throws it differently if Zay Flowers is 6'5". I think he's 6 foot even. I was standing next to him at the joint practice. I'm like, wow, this guy's short. Yeah. He's exceptionally fast and a really good wide receiver, but when you're trying to throw to him in the end zone, goal line type situation, it's not as easy as throwing it up to a guy like Likely. Well, next play, last play of the game, 5 seconds left on the clock. He hits Likely, the toe on the out-of-bounds line. It was called a touchdown. Ravens were going to go for 2. Talk about the drama of that play. I wish it happened. I wish they rolled him in just so we could see that 2-point conversion. It was win or lose for the Ravens if they got the chance to do it, but Likely is out of bounds, incomplete pass, game over. The boogeyman strikes again. Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, man.
They are the Chiefs, and I do love Patrick Mahomes' comments after the game, right? He gets up there and he says, hey, look, it was week 1. We knew they were a great team. This is a playoff team. Now, seeding, you can't get into because it's week 1, but they're going to be in the playoffs, or they're going to be in the mix.
Both of these teams
will be. So to get that win, it's huge for Kansas City. Yeah, go Chiefs, because I'm a fan of them. But Also, it's good for the Ravens. I mean, Lamar Jackson, what he did in Week 1, to be able to do that and have the poise to lead your team in a 2-minute drill, have the chance to win the game. You know, somebody colored in the out of bounds lines a little bit too much. Or likely you should.
Or Mahomes said he should wear white cleats next time.
Yeah.
So you can't tell.
So who knows?
Maybe he's got a point.
Well, it's like the you ever heard of the red glove scenario? Travis Kelce talks about people wear red gloves when they play the Chiefs because you hide the pulling and pushing and jersey grabbing.
It's smart too.
Yeah.
You got to play mind games a little bit. But,
exhilarating game.
The Ravens' offensive line might be a bit of an issue.
Might be a point of you got to give Lamar more time because I felt like watching that game last night. He's quick.
He was also really good. I mean, I was especially watching that last drive. He knew where Chris Jones was at all times, and he's spinning around. I mean, that's just like the Lamar experience. You do trust him, but watching him, you're like, what are you doing, man? You're just spinning around, but it was because the line was closing in on him quite a bit throughout that game. So that might be an issue, but again, the Ravens had a chance to win right at the end of the game. So that's just the NFL. The margins are so thin. We expect a good game in Brazil tonight. Sunday Night Football on TV6. The Lions host the Rams, a playoff rematch from last year. People are really high on both of these teams, I think for good reason, because if the Rams have a healthy Matthew Stafford, they have now one of the best wide receivers in the league in Puka Nacua after his incredible rookie season where he broke a bunch of records last year. So you have that, a young guy for Stafford to throw to in addition to Cooper Kupp, who had the Triple Crown a couple years ago, and then Kyron Williams running the ball. The Rams are really good, but the Lions are pretty much the same team as last year with what I would expect is a better defense, especially their defensive backs. I'm really curious to see how Terry and Arnold, their first-round cornerback, plays out of Alabama, another Alabama guy that Brad Holmes drafted there to Detroit. So another one, I think NBC made the right pick putting this on Sunday Night Football because I think these are two playoff teams as well. Obviously, they were last year. How do the Lions come out in front of their home fans that are just going to be absolutely off the walls, bouncing around? It's going to be loud before kickoff. I know it won't be 5 degrees like it was in January for that game, so everyone was in the building because nobody wanted to be out tailgating. It might be a little different when it's 60-some degrees or whatever on Sunday night. Maybe not everyone's out there booing Stafford an hour before the game, but, man, when that ball's kicked off, it's going to be loud in there. Kelly Stafford not going to be there, so her and the kids aren't going to get booed. No one has to worry about that. But it should be a great game, and I'm really just curious to see what that environment looks like, how the Lions respond after, an offseason where the expectations shot up for this team, and now it's Super Bowl. And it hasn't been that for a long time. Even last year, the expectations were high. We should be in the playoffs. We should be competing for the division. They checked all those boxes. They won the division. They won 2 playoff games. They were very close to going to the Super Bowl. Now what you did to yourself is you rose the bar a little bit, and now the expectation is a Super Bowl. So how do they come out week 1? Tone setter, like I said.
Yeah, no, you're right. Dan Campbell will be going for it on every 4th down in week
but
1.
Will he? That's like a legitimate question going into this year. Will he be as aggressive, or does he rely on their new kicker, whose name is escaping me, because Badgley got hurt early in training camp, out for the year. He's not kicking this year. Jake Bates is his name, the new kicker. Does he really trust that guy? Does he kind of change his mentality, or is it the same as we saw last year? He's going to be aggressive. I think he'll still lean on the side of aggressiveness, but
you got to take points.
With all the talk of that NFC Championship game and those 2 decisions to go for it on 4th down, they had the lead, and then later in the game, does that weigh on him a little bit where, over the course of the season, there's just a few more where he decides to either kick a field goal or punt it instead of going for it? I think there's a couple more of those instances where he lays off, but overall, he'll still be the aggressive head coach that you saw last year.
Yeah, and I mean, to go back to that championship game, if they go for it, or if they don't go for it, if they kick the field goals, do you make them? I don't know. You look at percentage, statistics, wind speed, you weigh the odds. I think that, like
most of their games are in a dome, which is good for Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
He plays so much better inside. He's going to go play in Chicago in December, I think 3 days before Christmas. So that's not going to bode well for Goff, but most of their games are indoors too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing. When you're kicking indoors, that's a big difference. Justin Tucker, who missed a field goal last night for the Ravens. Is he washed? I don't know. I hope not. But he made a 66-yarder a couple years ago in Detroit. So that would weigh into his decisions too. They are going to be playing most of their games indoors.
So you'll have pretty much pristine conditions. You're not going to have to talk about the wind too much. So, I think he's a fourth down man. I think, like you said, it will lean towards that side. But also, when you get into maybe later in the season, this is a conversation that'll be revisited when games start to matter a little bit more and you're fighting for those playoff spots and what place you're going to get, then maybe it's like, all right, we've got to take the points. Because if they take the points in the NFC Championship, well, maybe we're talking, about the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl already, and not now they have to get the Super Bowl this year. That's the expectation. So I think like a lot of teams that we've talked about from the high school level, from the college level, and even NFL today, week one is figuring out what you have. So maybe, hey, on a 4th and 3 or a 4th and 8, from the 22, he goes for the field goal instead in week one. See if Bates can put up points on the board for the Lions, right? Instead of, that's a lot of pressure, 4th and 8 at the 22 for Goff or for any of the offense to come through on that. Because, okay, if you don't get it, no, you don't give them the best field position, but you're still turning the ball over.
We'll see how it goes. Sunday night, TV6, 8:20 kick. In Detroit. That one should be fun. I have a trivia question for you, Keegan, because this one stood out to me, and this number actually hasn't changed this offseason, but it's an interesting one as we see Mahomes win more and more Super Bowls, now at 3 of them, 2 in a row, obviously. How many starting quarterbacks, week 1 starting quarterbacks this season have won a Super Bowl in their career?
How many week 1?
That will get the start on Sunday.
It's not. I want to say it's a lot. I feel like this is one of those questions where it's a lot more than you think about.
We'll start listing them.
So, Patty Mahomes, obviously.
That's one.
Oh, God. Who else has won a Super Bowl?
Right.
Matthew Stafford.
That's 2.
Has won a Super Bowl.
The only quarterback besides Brady or Mahomes to win a Super Bowl in the last 6 years is Matthew Stafford. Obviously, Brady's retired, so you got 2 of them.
I don't know, 4.
It is 4.
Okay, there we go.
Now, if Russell Wilson is one of them,
oh,
he's dealing with a calf issue. If he doesn't start for the Steelers on Sunday, the number is 3. And the other one is Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, God,
who won it 14 years ago for the Jets.
Jeez.
So only 4 out of the 32 starting quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was going to go high originally, but I'm like, no.
Joe Flacco is technically still active. He will not be starting, so I didn't count him. The number is 4. If Wilson doesn't start, you think about how Mahomes just keeps stealing Super Bowls from Brock Purdy and the 49ers and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. These guys don't have rings because of Mahomes, and you had Brady who won so many. Now retired. Only 4 starting quarterbacks. Like I said, if Wilson does not start,
that's
the number is 3.
Well, I got 2 of them. I'm proud of myself. I wouldn't have thought of Russell Wilson.
And going back to Rodgers in 2010, especially when he didn't play last year. But I mean, that's Monday night, Jets 49ers. That one will be fun.
Expectations
in
for
Santa
him,
Clara.
I think, are high too, as he moved on from the Packers and went to the Jets. Unfortunately, the injury last year, which is awful for Jets fans because they were probably excited to get him. But I don't know. It'd be exciting to see what Aaron Rodgers does over there. Stay healthy for the Jets fans, please. I don't really care because I'm not a Jets fan, but
I've come to the conclusion, I don't like Aaron Rodgers. He made my life hell for 15 years as a Bears fan, so I don't like him at all. I don't like a lot of the things he says and puts out into the world, but I'm just so curious to see if the Jets could be good with a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles. I do not want him to get hurt again.
Yeah, I mean,
That's where I'm at.
He's still going to be able to throw the
The
ball.
Jets could be really good if he's good, if he's MVP level or close to it. Aaron Rodgers, they could be a really good team. So that's another thing I'm very curious about.
Do we dare pick our MVP of the season right now? Week 1. Not all the games have been played.
Sure, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Joe Burrow.
That is, I mean, I could see it.
It's going to be a quarterback, right?
Yeah, you know who I'm thinking?
Who?
Brock Purdy.
Ooh, because those takes got really spicy last year.
Yeah.
Because his numbers were pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. And they were
It's
in
still
the
Pro
championship.
Football Writers that vote on it, and I think the consensus among the media is still Brock Purdy's not an elite quarterback. He is really good with the 49ers and their system. So that might hurt him, but I like that. I like that because he was closer than you think. I don't know where he finished in the voting last year, but that's a good take.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Burrow. I really like Burrow. If Jamar Chase is on the darn field and signs this contract, then the Bengals could be really good in that division as well. Okay, so we'll revisit that. Super Bowl picks.
Yeah. Super Bowl picks.
And I have not thought of this, so this is going to be off the cuff. A lot of people in the media put a lot of time into thinking and reasoning.
I think it just makes sense for the Detroit Lions to be in the Super Bowl this year.
Okay.
So I'm going to go Detroit.
Okay.
And who else do I want? God, this is tough. Who else do I think is going to be?
Out of the AFC?
Out of the AFC, who do I think?
Well, there's two really good options that we saw play last night.
Yeah, I know. I want to pick the Chiefs because I'm a Chiefs fan, but I think that
A lot of people think they're going to get it done, the
I
three-peat.
think they are. I mean, who's beating them? Who's beating them in the playoffs? Patrick Mahomes is throwing.
The thing is, last year was maybe the year to get him.
Yeah, and then you didn't.
I know.
Yeah.
And now he's got Xavier Worthy, who's the fastest man ever. His
Yeah,
first touch of the season, he scores a touchdown.
Yeah. You got Kelsey, who can get it done when you need to get it done. You know, you can throw to him.
Yeah.
He's kinda
I'm
old.
going to go.
Yeah, I'm going to go Lions, Chiefs. That's going to be my pick.
Who's your winner?
Lions. They're
Okay.
doing it this year. You're welcome, Detroit.
I'm going to avoid choosing the Lions or the Packers, not because I don't want either of them to be in the Super Bowl. I just want to let that play out.
Fair enough.
I think both of them could be there.
They could.
Both really good teams. I'm going to go with the Eagles. Going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay, they just figure things out. Get back to 22 a little bit. And the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar can do it.
I think the interesting thing is, too, we could potentially have the Orioles and the Phillies in the World Series. So the Ravens and the Eagles in the World Series would just get a couple of I-95 series. Would be crazy.
It
Would be fun. And I'm going to go Ravens over Eagles. The
Yeah.
Eagles get their hearts broken again.
I think it's time for Lamar to get a ring. I mean, he got me 25 points in fantasy last night. I know they lost, but 25 points in fantasy
He had almost 400 yards by himself.
by himself. Yeah.
Combined passing and rushing. Pretty incredible. Let's close out with college football. I have another trivia question for you.
All right, back to back. Here we go.
How many head coaches in D1 college football have a national championship?
Oh, God.
This number is smaller than the quarterbacks in the NFL with the Super Bowl.
So how many Division I coaches,
Active.
active, have a national championship?
Harbaugh, gone.
So it doesn't count. Yeah, my first thought was Harbaugh.
Saban, gone.
Gone. That was my first thought. Second
That's
thought,
7 of them. 8 with Harbaugh. So
God. I don't know his name. I want to say This is just me guessing, and I don't know their names. Georgia's head coach.
That's right.
Oklahoma's head coach.
Oklahoma's head coach does not have a national title. Bob Stoops might have back in the day. So you're right. Georgia with Kirby Smart.
There you go.
He's got 2 of them back to back, 21 and 22. Then Dabo Swinney has 2 at Clemson. So with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. And then the third is Mac Brown at Texas in, I believe, 2005 was their BCS national title.
Yeah.
And now he's at North Carolina. So 3 college head coaches, and that obviously way more teams and a lot of years, have a national title. That's pretty crazy. Kirby Smart at Georgia looks like he could definitely do it again. Dabo Swinney at Clemson is very far away. They look really bad. They will not be in the playoff this year. I've already determined that after week 1. So maybe Kirby gets another one. That number stays at 3, or it's another coach getting their first this year. I hate to say it, Michigan fans. Could be Ohio State.
It could be Ohio State.
They're probably right there with Georgia as the most talented team in college football. Michigan, obviously Sharon Moore wants to get his name up there. He was not the head coach. He did coach 6 games last year when Michigan were the national champs, but can't count him. So the number is only 3. Michigan week 1, Fresno State, they did not look good.
No.
And now they have Texas coming to the big house Saturday afternoon.
And if you don't look good, then Texas will run in there.
I think Texas is the better team.
And they will run right out of there. The big house does not scare Texas. Texas is not afraid of the big house.
I don't think Texas can win going away because Michigan is still going to do everything they did last year, run the ball. Donovan Edwards, you still have him. Blake Corum's obviously gone. They still have a really good defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be there. I think where they really took the hit, Michigan, and this is after 1 week, we'll see and we'll find out if this is true. Losing J.J. McCarthy was huge. I know everyone was like, oh, he didn't do anything. He just handed the ball off.
But he did. He did.
He did a lot of things and in close games, which we could see on Saturday. Big noon kickoff on Fox UP. It could be a tight game. Do you trust Davis Warren, who got the start against Fresno State, and then you had Alex Orji, who's a lot more talented probably, but isn't the CEO of the offense as much as McCarthy was.
Mm-hmm.
I think their quarterback play is just taking that much of a drop-off, and that might be a kryptonite because they still have a good offensive line. They're still a good team, but I don't know if they have the elite quarterback that they had last year. And even though that's true, he rarely threw the ball more than 15, 20 times, but he did so many things so well. And thinking about that Rose Bowl when it was a tight game, who led them down the field to tie the game, send it to overtime? JJ. He did it when it really counted.
It mattered, yep.
So that's where I'm at with Michigan. They will win or lose against Texas, have a chance to make the playoff. Obviously, it will be a lot easier if they get the win over Texas. Then you have the Ohio State game to look forward to at the end of the year in Columbus. Buckeyes, like I said, look like one of the 2 best teams in the country. So it's an uphill battle for Michigan. That's where I'm at with the Wolverines.
I agree.
Go blue right now.
I agree.
Still, the Texas game will be a lot of fun at the Big House. Touch on Michigan State. Yikes. Friday night. Jonathan Smith's first game. Aiden Childs, the quarterback, 16-10. They got that with 2 touchdowns and a safety. Now they have to play a Big Ten game at Maryland. Maryland looked really good, has been an overall much better team than Michigan State over the past couple of years. Maryland went into East Lansing last year and got a win. Might be a long year for Spartan fans. I do think Jonathan Smith's a really good head coach, but I don't think they have any talent.
You think they're building?
Yeah.
And they got to get the right guys in there, and it's going to be a couple of years. You don't.
I'm interested to see how he recruits. Is he a national recruiter? Is he going back to the West Coast a little bit where he's from and had a lot of success? How well does he recruit Michigan? Does he get a lot of guys that Go Blue passes up on? Interested to see how that goes because he's never been a coach in the Midwest.
Yeah, does he steal guys from Michigan?
Or is Michigan State still this national program where they can go down south and get players? They'll do a little bit of that. There's so much talent in Florida and Texas. I think, they'll get some guys from there. interested to see how he recruits, but this team, they won by 6 over Florida Atlantic. It did not look good. I think Child's a pretty good quarterback. He didn't show it in week 1, and they have Maryland on Saturday. Let's check the lines on those games before we sign off.
Yeah.
My Terps at home, like I said, first Big Ten game of the year for both teams. And there's so many college games, it's going to take me a minute to get there.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Well, actually, Michigan. Oh, God. Michigan, Texas. 7.5-point dogs at home in Ann Arbor. The Wolverines are.
Wow.
Can they keep it within a touchdown?
Yeah.
I kind of like that. The over-under is 41.5. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You're going to get 2 really good defenses. Michigan will obviously have to go up against Quinn Ewers, who's one of the Heisman front runners heading into this year. So 7.5-point dogs at home. I kind of like that for Michigan.
I do too. Yeah. I think they can do that. I think it can.
Maybe a little bit of disrespect for defending national champs, but Texas was in the college football playoff last year too.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was a 4-team college football playoff, so maybe a little bit of disrespect on the defending national champs.
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan State on the road at Maryland. This is just strange to me. As a Maryland grad who's been watching Maryland football closely for a number of years now, Maryland is 9.5-point favorite at home in this one. So almost 10-point dogs the Spartans are on the road in a Big Ten game.
An opportunity to make some noise. Do I think Michigan State beats Maryland? No.
I don't think so either, but I mean that's a pretty big line too.
Yeah,
I know it's
close.
college football, but
Keep it
that's
close.
interesting. Maybe I like the 2 dogs from the Great Lakes
I
State
have to
here.
do it. Did we touch on
Interesting.
college soccer? Season's started.
Yeah, good start for
For Northern
3
and-
squads.
Yeah, Northern and Tech. I guess we'll start with GLIAC champs defending. Two.
Yeah, and they looked like it.
They look like it. Northern Michigan.
4 goals in the first 20 minutes for NMU, a 6-1 win over Minnesota Duluth. That sneeze is coming.
That sneeze is coming. Here it is, folks.
Nope.
Nope.
I looked up in the lights. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Then you look up in the lights
in
and it
the
goes
lights.
away. I really thought it was happening that time, though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But they looked. They looked like the defending GLIAC regular season and tournament champions.
Yeah.
6-1 over
Yeah.
Duluth. 4 in the first 20 minutes. Kind of lets you. Now I won't say coast because they didn't coast. They scored 2 more goals and they kept the pressure on for the full time. But when you score,
I think
4,
20-something players got in,
Yeah.
though, so it's a little bit of like you're feeling good.
Yeah, you're feeling good after the first one, and then just to switch it over, Melissa Kuhar, Michigan Tech, she gets her first win as the head
Gritty,
coach.
75th minute they
Yeah.
scored in a 1-0 game.
Yeah, she gets her first win under the Huskies. Excited to see them.
And I told you that GLIAC preseason poll, still mad about that. They got picked 6th.
Yeah.
They were in the tournament last year.
Yeah. Come on, who votes on that?
Good start. Good start. They lost to St. Cloud to start the year last year.
Yeah.
So
there we go.
good start. And then NMU men's soccer.
Yeah, gets it done against.
Well
Northwood.
done. They score in the 65th minute, 1-0 win over Northwood.
Yeah, and I think like you said on the broadcast last night, halfway to the wins they got last year.
Yeah.
So if they get another one, they've already matched it, and I think they looked good. And talking with Alex Vodovich over the past couple seasons, finding a way to score, have the lead, and then finish the game, and they did that. I was watching the whole game, but in the second half especially, those last 15 minutes, controlling the ball, controlling the pace, making all their assignments. There was a late corner kick for Northwood that could have tied the game.
Yeah.
And it was in there. It was a nice ball in, and Northern Michigan gets control, gets it out, gets it the other way, and holds on to the lead.
Obviously, Ivanovic kind of overhauled the roster this offseason. I believe 17 new guys coming in. There's a lot of change, but at the same time, guys like Jan Hoffman, who were really good last year, still around, kind of becoming leaders for this team. And he said on Tuesday at his press conference that they're going to be more of a possession-based team. That's what a lot of these guys are comfortable with. And I think in that game they did a good job, controlling possessions and giving themselves opportunity. Obviously, it resulted in the 1 goal and held the Timberwolves scoreless through the whole game.
And then I think a big, not addition, a big returner. He returns, their captain, Tomas Olami.
Yeah.
2022
Absolutely.
GLIAC Freshman of the Year.
Yeah.
Back after injury, to have him back on the field and what he's able to do.
Yeah, he was not healthy last year. They would have won a couple more of those games if he was on the pitch.
So they have the opportunity to make some noise. Definitely probably the underdogs, seen as the underdogs, but with the new that they've brought in, with the returners, Lamy back in there, Jan Hoffman, Logan Lazar, let's go NMU men's soccer.
I like it.
They have the opportunity to make some noise.
Good start for all 3 teams. Actually, the only NMU or Tech team to lose on Thursday night was NMU football. Like we said, they played all right, but they get the loss. They're 0-2. And I think that does it for this edition of the UP Powered Podcast. We have a loaded up slate for Friday Night Fever. Join us then, 11:20 Eastern on TV6. Appreciate you joining us. We'll be back earlier in the week next week to kind of recap what goes on this weekend. But a great start to the weekend. I think Thursday is the start of the NFL season. College football we had last night. College soccer like we just talked about. Fun times here in the UP and across the country, really watching football. A lot of fun, and we'll talk to you next time.